We are here to talk about money. We are here to talk about money plans right now. So, money may be something that we know we all need, but something that we are uncomfortable to talk about. So, we're going to talk about something that's uncomfortable for us to talk about, but something that is necessary for us to talk about, particularly during these times. So, I just want to say again that we do know that Black women have lost, many of us have lost jobs during this time. We know that over 300,000 Black women have lost their jobs during this time. And I know for me, I've heard about this and I'm deeply saddened by so many Black women losing their jobs. And for me, I want to support Black women in whatever ways that I can. And so I have reached out to Dr. Roche and have thought about ways I can support Black women. And one of the things I thought about is how can I support Black women in thinking about if I lost my job, what would be some of the things that I would be worried about? And I'm thinking about, I will be worried about how am I going to pay my bills?
Mhm.
So I reached out to Dr. Roche because you may know Dr. Roche. Dr. Roche is a financial psychologist, and I'll have her introduce herself in a moment. So, Dr. Roche, if you don't know her already, she is the financial psychologist whom I work with to get my financial exit plan together when I was getting ready to leave my toxic job. So I reached out to Dr. Roche. We've collaborated before on financial masterclasses. And I reached out to her and I said, hey, I have an idea. What are your thoughts about maybe us collaborating on some type of masterclass for Black women who have lost their jobs, or maybe they think they're about to lose their jobs? Like coming up with some type of financial exit, emergency money plans or tips or something like that for Black women. So we came up with something. Okay. So we have an emergency money tips masterclass for Black women. So this was kind of like put together to really support Black women. So I'm going to have Dr. Roche introduce herself. And this is a really an impromptu conversation to talk about what the masterclass is about. We're going to tell you a little bit more about the masterclass, when it is, and the registration information is going across the screen. And it's also a description section of this video on YouTube. So, Dr. Roche, can you please introduce yourself?
All right. Well, good evening, ladies, and Dr. Kamani. My name is Dr. Roche Brown. I am also known as the Doctor of Rethinking because I help people to remix their thinking so they can make money, they can manage their money, and they can multiply their money. Okay. And like Dr. Kamani said, I am a financial psychologist. So I have been a licensed clinical psychologist for since 2006. But about 9 to 10 years ago, I added the component of helping people around their money mindset because money can be scary, right? Anytime we hear money, we think about math, and math makes us scared, and we say we don't want to do any of it. We avoid, we feel ashamed by different money mistakes in the past. And all of those things, get triggered when we experience any kind of like financial trauma that we need to heal from. And I think job loss is definitely one of those things.
Mm-hmm.
Right, that's a
Mm-hmm.
huge one of the biggest financial traumas that we, experience, and so it gets a little scary around like what do we do around our money when those things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's kind of talk as psychologists first, right? So why do you think that Black women may avoid this conversation about money? And why do you think Black women, some Black women may avoid this conversation about job loss, either if they've lost a job or the
Mhm,
prospect of losing a job? Why do you think that
mhm.
some of us may avoid these types of conversations?
Yeah, I think starting off with like why do we avoid money, right? I think there's a lot of different components for why people tend to avoid money. Like I say, one of those components is math, right? We think about numbers. Numbers get scary for us. A lot of us, we're not really good in math, and so we associate math and money together, and that is one of the fears. Another like fear though, and I don't know if it's in other cultures, but in the Black culture specifically, especially when we look at Black women professionals, we sometimes come from families who never talked about money. So we have no history or no foundation or no footing around what do we do around money? How do I save? How are they budgeting? Right? Very possible in our family, they made things work. Right? We just seen lights on, bills seem to get paid. We didn't understand how they happened, if they even happened, right? But nobody ever talked about it. And so then you become an adult and you find yourself like, now I'm responsible for all these bills, but nobody ever told me what to do, how to
Mm,
manage them. And with you being educated and intelligent in so many other areas, your mind feels like, well, how do I ever get support around this? We get like afraid to even ask for support because we don't want to feel stupid. We don't want to feel like, why don't I know? Right. And so we make a lot of mistakes. And then those mistakes cause a lot more guilt and more shame around
mm,
it. Right. And, guilt and shame just kind of makes you like, hostage, hold yourself emotionally hostage to doing anything better. And
mhm,
so I think all of those things kind of like fit in when it comes down to, why we start avoiding money. Let me just
mhm,
not look at it. I'm gonna just go out and make
mm,
it. Like, so we get very good at making it, but we don't really get good at like paying attention to it. Where is
mhm,
it going? Having some
mhm,
awareness of it, developing a relationship with it. We
mhm.
don't do that. We just make it and hopefully everything works out.
Yeah, let's go deeper into that too, because now we're talking about guilt and shame about
Mhm.
money. So if we're thinking about the guilt and shame that we have about maybe money mistakes that we made, many
Yeah.
times because we don't really know that much about
We
money
didn't know.
literacy. So
Right.
now let's think about that and then add it onto it. Let's say you've lost a job or you're thinking about your job, you might be losing your job. Let's talk about adding the guilt and shame onto that and how
Yeah.
that contributes to avoidance as well. Thank
Yeah.
you,
So
Miranda.
that's next level, right? That's next level. So, another area of like avoiding money can be financial trauma, right? A trauma
Mhm,
that happens. And one big trauma is job loss. And I think job loss, it makes us fearful in a lot of different ways. I
mhm,
always look into identity when I think about jobs, right? A lot of us, we go to school, we get educated in order
mhm,
for us to get that good job. Like that was
mhm.
like the destination that we were
Right.
working so hard towards. And then you get there and your goal is to go higher and higher in different roles. And that's our goal. And
Mhm,
so when your identity is filled with this is what I do every day, we spend
mhm,
majority of our lives at work or at least thinking about work, right?
mhm,
So even when you're in a high profile job or as a professional, you're not even at work and still thinking about work, right?
mm,
Like things that need to get done and things that you have to worry about. You taking
mhm,
time from your family because you're so focused on this job. So this
mhm,
job really consumes a big part of who you are, you
mhm,
know? And so then you imagine a big part of who you are is no longer there. It's
mm,
lost,
mhm,
you know?
mhm.
And I think that is like, ultimately it's a loss, like any kind of grief and loss,
Mhm.
and you kind of go through those stages, of
Yeah.
like kind of, going through a lot of like grief and loss. And I think that's
Mhm,
what's happening for a lot of like Black women right now is that you are experiencing this huge loss, not
mm.
just loss of the job, but a loss of like a sense of self,
Yeah.
right? Well, who am I now that I'm no longer at this particular job?
Mhm,
And I think all of that starts to, kind of come up inside of you emotionally,
mhm.
spiritually, right? And then we got the other component of financially as well.
Yeah, yeah. And just the primal fears of how am
Yeah,
I going to survive, right? So,
yeah,
how am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to eat? Where are we going to live? Like all these fears are coming up.
yeah,
And so what's happening is there's the fear, but the fear is triggering avoidance. And so we're
yeah,
having these conversations because we recognize how these situations can cause all these different feelings, right? But what
yeah,
we're saying is, as psychologists, that we recognize that the emotions may be fueled right now, but the avoidance is not going to help us.
mhm,
So, Dr. Roche and I are talking about we need to have open conversations about what's happening right now. And we also recognize that as Black women, that we need to get a handle on this is what's happening and let's come up with a plan. Okay. So when I
Yeah.
talk about toxic jobs or anything that we're dealing with, we have to come up with a plan. So now what we're talking about is how do we come up with an emergency money plan if you've been laid off from your job, or if you feel like, uh-oh, this job market is crazy. I see people getting laid off. Like, I need to come up with a plan. So can we talk about, and I see a comment came in about talking about money was considered being in grown folks' business, right? So
Real.
growing up, like, girl, no, we don't, you get out, this
Yes.
grown folks
Of
conversation.
this. Yes.
You know, get out this business, right? So
Yeah.
again, we're talking about the emergency money tips masterclass for Black women, which is October 2nd. It is 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Pacific time. And it is Zoom webinar. Okay. So you will not be seen on camera. We know as Black women, we are private. Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit more about the masterclass. So Dr. Roche, can you talk about what is this emergency tips masterclass? Why would a
Right.
Black woman benefit from this masterclass if she's
Yeah.
scared right now?
Right. So, we already recognize that the avoidance of money might have already been there,
Yes.
right? So that was already like some piece that was already lingering. And then you're dealing with like this emotional response to also losing a job. And
Mhm.
so when, Dr. Kamani said like, hey, let's collaborate, I was like, I was thinking, what would I feel and what would I need, in the moment of like losing a job, right?
Mhm.
Because of course we have the emotional stuff, but let's talk about some practical financial things like what should
Mhm.
I do?
Mhm.
Because I think a lot of our emotional stuff paralyzes us, and we don't have any idea what to even try to do. And so
Right.
the emergency money plan masterclass is really about, let's talk about the specifics of what you actually need to do, right?
Mhm.
We're not going to go into like getting, doing all the finance and stuff that you should have done back in the day. We want like, what should we do in the emergency,
Like
right?
immediately.
Immediately. And so, we're going to be building immediately like some financial clarity. This part is part that has to be done, right? Like we have to understand your numbers now. That's going to be important no matter what. And so we want to like try to get a clear understanding of what your numbers are, but we also want to get clear on what we need to prioritize. So what I realize with people when they're talking about any kind of money situations, but specifically when we're leaving a job, our minds think, let me keep on paying my bills the same way that I paid them before, right? Because you're just so used to, you're in a routine, you're in a pattern of paying in a certain way. But now we have to take a pause, right? A mindful pause and say, what are the things that I need to prioritize in paying? Right? Because it's possible you may have got a severance package, you may have gotten something, but we need to prioritize because we're on limited money status.
Mhm.
Okay. So we're going to talk about the things that you have to prioritize. What are those things that are essential in your life?
Mhm.
And then we're going to basically kind of create a bare minimum budget. Like what is like the minimum that you need to have within your budget as
Mhm.
well.
Mhm.
One of the areas that I notice people always do when they're worried about getting their money together is they get so focused on their debt. And your money is like at this point where your money is limited, we can't focus on the debt the same way. Right.
Mhm.
So that's why I'm saying that prioritizing, we got to, of course, we got to make sure we have a place to stay. We have
Mhm.
food in our stomach, right? Some of
Mhm.
those things. But we want to make sure that we're not still trying to pay down debt and we're in a survival mode. We have
Right.
to kind of focus and prioritize that. So we're
Mhm.
going to discuss like how to do that within the class. Um,
Mhm.
Also, a very important aspect is communication. Communication to your utility, the bills that you have. A lot of times, we're not communicating with these companies, and a lot of companies have financial hardship funds and resources, and a lot of us
Mhm.
don't even know that it even exists, right? Like, there's, your car company may allow you to skip one or two payments, right? Your utility company may reduce your energy bill. There's different things that you can do, and a lot of us don't know that. And so in that first couple of months of losing that job, we're still paying the top dollar for all those bills. And so we're going to kind of talk about what can we do in our communication to make sure that we're, not doing that as well. Right. And then I think the third most like important like thing, and this is more of the emotional, us being psychologists piece, is, how are we going to cope through these stages of grief? I'll say, right? Because you may be so stuck on anger, you know what I mean, with this company, let's say, that you're not focusing on you now, right? We have to like kind of move towards that anger, out of that anger. Maybe you're in that depression state, and we have to talk about how do we get out of those, because if we don't figure out ways to cope during this difficult time, we may fall back into negative financial patterns, right? That may make our situation worse.
Like
right?
what?
So like anything can happen. Like, so now we have different vices, right? So now you trying to cope with stress. Maybe you're overeating. Maybe you still door dashing, even though your money's low, right? Like those kinds of things. Maybe you still find yourself kind of numbing out, and you're on TikTok and you're on TikTok shop, right? Like you're still buying stuff, Amazon, you're doing things like that. Maybe you're drinking, right? Maybe you've increased your alcohol. Self-medicating, right? It could be smoking, so those things are things because you're trying to cope with what has just happened.
Yeah.
But those are also increasing financial situations, right? And so we have to figure out how do we like manage our stress and this change, like how do we move towards this level of kind of acceptance of this new life sooner rather than later, right? Not invalidating what we feel, but how do we kind of move through that process in a easier, better way? And so I think that is, the things that we're going to kind of be covering in the class. So we have the practical stuff, but we're going to, also kind of talk a little bit about like, what are we going to do about our stress management techniques? How do we get out of our own emotional way to get to the financial practical stuff?
Powerful, very powerful. So what would you say to a Black woman who might be on the fence about coming to the Emergency Money Tips Masterclass? What would you say to her, Dr. Roche?
Yeah, well, I honestly, like, I know it's hard. So I want to validate like what you're feeling, like you weren't in the wrong. So that's one of the things of like, I think it can take a hit on our self-esteem, and we think it's about us, right? We understand this whole political climate, the fact that it's over 300,000 women, it's not you alone, right? There's something else that led to this, right? And so you have to take the time to realize this ain't about me. You know what I'm saying? There's something bigger than me, that's out there. And I just need to get out of my way so I don't cause a problem, like cause additional problems, right? In my life. And so I think that the Money Masterclass helps the emergency, right? That's why we put it together like it's an emergency. What are they going to do? An emergency, 911. Okay, it's an emergency. That it's time for you to say, let me get out of my own way, right? And let me make sure that I start doing the proper things that I can do, so I can, move through this in a more healthier way, right? And not allow the trauma of everything, you know what I mean, to overtake me and consume me, right? We want to, be concerned, but we don't want to get consumed, right? At this time. And so I think that the Emergency Money Masterclass is there for you to be able to do that, to get out of your own way and to figure out what are the steps. And this is for, Black women who have lost their job, but also those who may just feel anxious. Like you see it, you can like see something's coming, something's, happening, the way people are talking to you, managers are talking, other people are losing their jobs. You feel it, right? And you need to get yourself prepared, right? Like while you're still there, so this is for both area.
Mhm. Mhm.
areas of people, that, you want to come to this masterclass. I also believe that like we really made the fee, and I just want to, I guess we can talk about that.
Yeah.
We of course have other master classes that, are at a higher cost or an
Mhm.
investment, right? But this one, we actually literally lowered it down because
Mhm.
we were thinking about your finances.
Yes.
So we
Yes.
just need you to have a little skin in the game. We're
Yes.
not, it's not about anything about, trying to, have you spend too much money. We just need you to have
Mhm.
a skin in the game to say that I'm committed to coming and I'm going to be there and I'm going to show up. But
Mhm.
it's a very, very, very like low cost, no brainer. Like, let's get in here and just get this information,
Right.
with two psychologists,
Right.
who are going to be able to help you through.
Right. 2 Black women,
Yes.
licensed clinical psychologists.
Yes. Come on now. Right.
How are you gonna get that at this price?
Yeah.
Okay, for
Yeah.
real.
I mean,
Okay.
individually, neither one of us, like individually,
True. That.
charge
Yes.
this,
True. True,
right?
true, true.
Oh,
Yes.
so
So true.
for two of us to be able to give 2 hours of our time, you know what I mean? It's like no brainer with the costs. You think?
Yes. Yes, yes. This really is a labor of love because again, when I keep hearing about what's happening to us,
Yeah.
I have felt just so helpless about what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? And
Yeah.
I'm so thankful that Dr. Roche was like, girl, let's do this. Let's
Yeah.
figure this out. And I just want for Black women to be able to know that yes, this is happening to you alone, but you are not alone. Okay. And that it may feel like these terrible things are happening to you. And yes, it is happening to you. But I want you to also remember there are things that you can do for yourself to help yourself. Okay. So the
Yes.
job may have been taken from you. Okay. Or the prospect of the job may be taken from you, but there are things that you can do right now that you have control over your life. Okay. So one of the things you can take control over your life is thinking about how you have better control over your money.
Yeah.
Okay. And when we think about money, we don't praise money, we don't worship money, but we know that money is the gateway for us to get certain things in our life and for us to have certain things in our life. Okay. So when we think about coming up with that emergency money plan, like Dr. Roche said, what is our bare necessity budget? It is very important for us during times like this that we don't bury our heads in the sand because
Right.
that's not going to help us. Yes, we need to grieve and we still need to get prepared. Okay. So we need to always be aware of what's happening and we always need to be prepared. So this masterclass is just to make sure that we are prepared and that we are able to move forward and do what we need to do. So we are in the best possible situation in light of what is happening. Okay. So again, the Emergency Money Tips Masterclass for Black women is October 2nd. It is 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Pacific time. It is Zoom webinar, so you will not be seen on camera. Only Dr. Roche and I will be on camera.
Yeah.
You will be in the live and you will also get the recording after. Okay. So get your ticket. Registration ends October 1st. So get your ticket today so you don't forget. Okay. So again, we want you to be proactive. We want you to be proactive. So I want to read some of the comments that were talking about options. Okay. So someone wrote in the chat, so many African Americans are moving to Mexico, especially the Yucatan, due to the cost of living and the availability of the Ask Family Health Care. One can rent a 2-bedroom bath for 700. Wow.
Wow.
Okay.
Okay.
Girl, look at options. Okay. Yes,
Yes.
absolutely. Yes, we've been taught to tie our identity to our job. What happens when these jobs are ripped away? Yes. And I
Mhm.
did a really powerful, had a really powerful discussion Sunday with Dr. Wendy Williams, who is actually the incoming president for the American Psychological Association, talking
Oh,
about work and identity for us as Black women and how we
wow.
can refuse that and reclaim our identities.
Yeah.
Been laid off 50 million times, still traumatized and recovering from the 2002 layoff. And you know what, sis? I appreciate you saying that because layoffs and jobs and being in toxic jobs, all that kind of stuff, it has a residual impact. You know what I'm
Oh,
saying? So when you think about these jobs and all that stuff, it can impact you over time. The
hmm
hope is that it has less impact over time, but it can really impact you over time.
hmm
Yes. Debt goes unpaid. Dr. Roche, can you talk a little bit about how we can shift our mindset,
hmm
particularly during times of financial uncertainty and when
hmm
we need to have that bare necessity budget,
hmm
how we can shift the mindset of focusing less on debt and more on our survival budget.
Yeah, it's just that like a lot of times people, are often trying to pay off their debt.
Hmm.
And let's just say, prior to the job loss, you were like, I'm paying like $700 in debt, right? Like you're just worried about that part.
Hmm.
And now that is now $700 of cash flow, right?
Mm.
That is now has to shift because we need to survive, right?
Hmm.
And so what, and now I don't believe you not to communicate. That's why I say communication is going to still be key. We're
Hmm.
going to let our like creditors know, hey, this is what's going on with me. This is my financial hardship that I'm in. Don't just like stop paying. Okay. So let me be clear, right? Because I don't feel like that might not be that clear on that.
Uh-huh.
So communicate with them, right? Because they know financial hardship happens for people. The problem is that most people don't communicate about the fact that the financial hardship happens, and then
Mm.
that's when it kind of attacks you in a different way because you haven't communicated about it. And so why it's going to be very important to just let them know what's going to happen, right? If they can lower it down, or even if you just lowering it down to paying only your minimum versus paying over that minimum, because cash flow is going to be very important during the time that you're trying to survive,
Mm.
right? We also don't want to use our credit cards as much as possible because now credit cards are really there for serious emergencies,
Mm.
right? So we don't want to just be using them like all the time. So if you even are paying bills, this is why we have to get very clear on like where's our money going. You know,
Mhm.
sometimes when people are paying their bills, they pay it on this credit card, this credit card, this bank account, this bank account, this, and you actually don't have a full picture of what you're even doing.
Mm.
Right. And so we kind of need to get a clear understanding of like, where's everything going? Do I need this to come out? You may be having subscriptions to stuff. Like I got a subscription for Black Girl Vitamins. And I was like, oh wait, I already did that. Like it's already another one coming up. Right. Like, so like you have a subscriptions to certain things that you may not even realize you have subscriptions to, and you're still paying on those. And a lot of them don't make sense for you to be paying on at this very time either, right? So that's why we have to get very clear on that. We have to lower, how much we're putting on that debt. I know that in the short term, it's going to feel like bad, like, oh my God, my debt is still increasing, but we need money now and we need cash flow now. And so that's
Mhm.
what we're looking for to happen. If you have good credit, you're in a better position, right? Because then you have options. So you can say, let me look for a 0% credit card where I can, do a balance transfer. You want to do those things like while you're still in that income state, right? Because if somebody was to ask you, how much money do you make? You still have made income. If you just got laid off a month ago, I mean, there's income still available for this year, right? That you have made. So you want to go ahead and start those things right now and ask for the 0% APR. If you're considering a refinance or anything of that sort, start to look into those options, while there still was income that was recent. A lot of times we end up waiting too long, and then they're like, well, there's nothing that you can't show any kind of income. And
Mm.
that makes it a little bit more difficult, for you to find money that might even be available. I mean, like it's there, but it's not accessible for you as
Okay.
well.
Okay. I see a comment came in. LOL until they reply with, "Can you borrow the money from someone?" Shaking my head, blank stare, silence.
Yeah, if they do all that, they doing too much.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
ain't
yeah,
getting paid, okay? Like that's what's gonna happen.
yeah, yeah. So yeah. So any last words before we wind down today, Dr. Roche?
I would just say, this is an opportunity, right? You know what I mean? Like, as Dr. Kamani said, this is a labor of love. And so just, what we know that we can offer is our skill sets, right? That, our talents, our skill sets in being able to support somebody else. And so that's what we wanted to do was, in a state of feeling helpless, we always know we got something, right? And I want to say to all of you guys, in a state of feeling helpless, you always got something, right? Because you guys all still have your talents and your skill sets as well, right? And those things can still be monetized and make money for you and everything. And this is something that we're able to put together using our skill sets to be able to serve you. And so this is like us really being servants, in this kind of like way to make sure that we're able to support you guys that are going through a tough time.
Yeah.
And I know that I would want this support if I was going through a tough time. I want this to come across my social media screen and say, "Ooh, that's what I needed," and let me go ahead and get into this.
Yes, that's so true. That really touched me because I just think about just as a community, and Marissa and I were meeting earlier today, and we were talking about, especially during this time, it's so important for us as Black people, particularly as Black women, to really unify and really look out for each other as Black women because this is a time. This is really a time, and we really have to do whatever we can to reach out and reach up and uplift one another. And so, Dr. Roche and I are doing what we can to try to uplift as
Yeah.
many Black women as we can by offering this emergency money tips masterclass for Black women. We would love for you to be a part of this masterclass. Again, registration information is on the screen. It's also in the description section of this YouTube video. Again, October 2nd, 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, and 4 p.m. Pacific time. Zoom webinar, so you will not be seen on camera for privacy considerations. And again, we hope that you are part of this and we really want to support you in this process. So if you haven't already given this video a thumbs up, please do so. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please do so as well. Turn the notification bell. And also, please share this video with at least 2 other Black women. Okay, I will be on Marissa's channel on Thursday. And then Roche and I will be on From Lack to Legacy on Sunday. So we hope to see you on Sunday. Okay, so have a good rest of your day. And again, we hope that you will be in the masterclass. Okay, everyone. So have a good rest of your evening. Take care, everyone. Bye bye.